The AAC Report is brought to you by Blake Blahut of Realty One Group. Whether you're looking to buy your very first home or looking to downsize or upgrade, call Blake Blahut anytime at 407-748-0484. Welcome to the AAC Report, only on the Knightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thank you so much for listening. On today's show, we recap the AAC title game with Frank Murtaugh of Memphis Magazine and the Memphis Flyer. And coming up later, we'll dial in for a closer look of the Army-Navy game with Joe Miller of the Navy Radio Network, as well as updates on AAC teams in tournament action in volleyball and men's soccer. Well, Memphis did win the AAC Championship by downing Cincinnati for a second straight week at the Liberty Bowl by a 29-24 score this time around in the title game. That secures a New Year's Six bowl bid to the Cotton Bowl to face Penn State. The Tigers finally closing the deal to win the conference after losing to UCF in the last two seasons in the title game. But now they have to face the challenge of playing the bowl game and losing their coach to FSU. Here is outgoing head coach Mike Norvelle of the Tigers on their big championship win.
Well, just first off, hats off to Cincinnati. I thought that was a phenomenal game. You look at our conference championship games over the years, you can always expect an incredible matchup. It was back and forth, two wonderful teams. You can see why they're both ranked in the top 20. But it was a great game. So proud of our players. We talked about it all week that we knew this was going to be a game that was going to come down to responses and how we responded to adversity, how we responded to success at times. But that's the character and the heart of these kids. And they've worked extremely hard since January to put ourselves in this position to be able to get to our third straight conference championship game and to find a way to be able to finish that on top was something I'll never forget. And these guys that are sitting on stage, all those guys that are sitting in that locker room, it's just a special group. And they love each other. They allow us to coach them. And, they've gotten better each and every day. And it's pretty remarkable.
Memphis quarterback Brady White, he reflects on his time with Coach Mike Norvelle.
Obviously, Coach Norvelle's resume and success here in Memphis is well recognized and was one of the reasons, not just himself, but the culture that, kind of he's helped lay as far as the this program, and that goes to credit, the past teams as well and players and coaches. But he's just done so much for the city and just been able to, have, opportunities like these where you have nationally televised games for, a lot to play for and able to display not only the football team but the city and everyone that's a part of this program. And as far as personally, I've known him since freaking 2012, so it means a whole lot to me, being a high school kid recruited by a man that believes in you and going through adversity early in my career and having to have multiple coaches, to have someone that still always had faith in you and give me the opportunity to come here. And then no matter what, we've had each other's backs, and to be champions now, it's a blessing. I'm very privileged to have played for this coach, and no matter what happens in the rest of life, he's always going to be someone that I hold dear and close to my heart.
Meanwhile, the Eastern Division champs, Cincinnati, they will face Boston College in the Ticket Smarter Birmingham Bowl. Bearcats coach Luke Fickell appreciates his seniors who have been a big part of the turnaround and the rise of their program.
It'll be tough, not knowing first of all, but when you lay so much on the line, it's going to be really difficult, and I think that's where, if you saw that locker room, you know where these guys have come from. Those guys right there, those are some fifth-year guys, those are some sixth-year guys, and those are some fourth-year guys. And, they've come from not just the 4-win season that we had in our first year, but a couple 4-win seasons before that. Been through a lot of coaching change, been through a lot of different things. Hopefully, no matter what, when they walk out of here, they'll truly believe and own and represent this CPAL and the things that they've done here. And I think that's why it's such a unique group, is when they've been through those adversities, even adversities before me or any of us, those are the things that make this even more difficult because of this. These opportunities don't come very often.
Frank Murtaugh, he is the managing editor of Memphis Magazine, covers sports for the Memphis Flyer, joins us now on the program to discuss the Memphis Tigers. They are the champions of the AAC, going to a New Year's Six Bowl, and at the same time, in a very bittersweet fashion, they're losing their coach, Mike Norvelle, to FSU. Frank, thanks for being on with us.
Hey, it's great to be back, Jeff.
So let's start first with the championship. We'll go with the good news first part of it. So third time is finally the charm after 2 straight championship game losses. They beat Cincinnati, had to do it 2 weeks in a row, and certainly the culmination of a lot of building of the program that Mike Norvelle has done.
Absolutely. You know, I think a big difference this year, Jeff, was obviously just having the game at home in the Liberty Bowl. There wasn't travel involved. The Tigers went down to Orlando to play UCF the last 2 years and came up short in a couple of tight ball games. But Saturday's contest was it was stellar. I hope it came across for the national audience as it did to those of us in the building. But the 7 lead changes and we knew, having seen the Bearcats the previous week, that this was going to be a tight football game, and the Tigers took over with a little over 4 minutes to play, 75 yards to go, down a point. It was an amazing culmination, as it turns out, to 4 years of Mike Norvelle's tenure here, and it's just for Memphis. It's 12 wins for the first time in the program's history. It's an on-field championship. They shared an AAC title in 2014 with 2 other teams before the league began its championship game. But it's a remarkable Tiger season, and for crying out loud, they're playing in the Cotton Bowl. That's not something that's been associated with Memphis football, or not even in the same stratosphere in most of the years I've been living here.
Yeah, and I tell you, was there a lot of concern having to play the Bearcats 2 weeks in a row, especially knowing that they were going to have their starting quarterback Desmond Ridder back?
Yeah, I think that was the big variable, Jeff. When the post-game press conference after the first Cincinnati game, Mike and Brady White and all the players were saying, listen, we've played UCF twice in a season, and we've had to look at film. The fact that the games came in proximity, within a week of one another, they didn't see it as being that big a difference. I think the twist on things was precisely that, the fact that Desmond Ridder started for a different sort of offensive attack for Cincinnati, and the Tigers had to adjust. And they had some trouble. I mean, Ridder was able to escape the pocket and get some big yardage Saturday afternoon, and almost made the difference, as it turned out. The Tigers were able to finish off the job, but it was it was a unique situation, the back-to-back weeks against the same opponent.
Yeah, and I tell you, the conference has to be delighted, Commissioner Mike Oresco and everything, because boy, the AAC Championship game seems to deliver every year.
It absolutely does, and look at what it's done for the New Year's Six representation too, Jeff. If I'm not mistaken, this is 4 out of 5 years that the AAC has sent the lone group of 5 representatives into the New Year's Six, and that says much about what the American has become. And the fact that you got some teams, UCF's one, Cincinnati's another, Navy, SMU. That if you ask me, they've got a gripe with a school like Virginia, not even ranked in the AP Top 25, playing in the Orange Bowl. Until the system is altered to allow more Group of 5 entrants into the big bowls, and let alone the college football playoff, it's going to be having to play almost perfect, which Memphis did this year, as UCF has done in recent history, to get into that New Year's Six.
So then comes the news that Mike Norvelle is going to take the Florida State job, and is it one of those situations where you're surprised but you're not surprised?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Memphis fans began considering how long this coach would be here middle of last season. His third year in, when they continued to score points at like a 40-point per game rate. That's not the kind of coach who's gonna stick around in the smaller sandbox of a Group of 5 league. Late this year, when Willie Taggart was fired, and then you had the situation with Ole Miss and Arkansas. Mike's name was going to come up, and so the news sort of broke but didn't break early last week. So it made for an awkward week of preparation, and it certainly made an awkward post-game press conference when Mike was wanting to tell the world that it was all about the Tigers winning that championship, when really it was all about something very different. He landed in a good spot, and there's no bitterness here in Memphis. I think if there's any frustration, it's over the timing, the chronology of it all, Jeff. The fact that Memphis is going to play in the biggest game the program has ever realized, and may ever realize. As I said, it's so unlikely for a group of 5 teams to reach a bowl as prestigious as the Cotton. And for the coach who got them there not to be on the sideline, there's just something wrong with that. There's no other sport in America where you have that scenario where you reach a championship, you reach the pinnacle, but your coach is no longer involved. That needs to be fixed somehow. There's no bitterness in Memphis. I think that for the person Mike Norvelle is, and goodness gracious, what he did both on and off the field here in Memphis, everyone's proud of what he's achieved, and wishes him well. And I think the general sentiment is, how do we continue it? How does Memphis continue this kind of run? And Ryan Silverfield's going to be taking over for the Cotton Bowl. He's the offensive coordinator, has been an assistant with Mike for 4 years, and that would be, I think, the guy, if continuity was the top priority. And I'm not going to speak for Laird Beach, the Tiger athletic director there, but that's one priority. But it's we've come to almost see these coaches, Jeff, as star players. They put in 4 years. Justin Fuente did. Now Mike Norvelle. Then they move on to greener pastures.
So the decision not to coach the bowl game, was that Norvelle's decision? Was that the school? How did that get decided?
Well, I think there's gray area there still. My understanding is, and I have not spoken with Mike, I haven't spoken to Laird about this. My understanding is they're negotiating scenarios, and I'm sure Florida State's involved, if Mike can have some role on December 28th in the Cotton Bowl. And I don't know what that would be. I can't quite get my mind around how that would work. If he's resigned and he's told his players, those 85 men in the locker room, and Ryan Silverfield was introduced Sunday to those same players as the interim head coach. I'm not sure how that would work if Mike came back for that one game, but I think the writing's on the wall. It would seem to me it would be more awkward than inspiring to have him on the sideline. But who knows? In many ways, it would be the right thing for him to be there, even if he didn't even have a headset on. Mike Norvelle has made the Memphis program. He took what Justin Fuente kind of set on a tee for him and just, hole in one. It just drilled it. And it'd be nice for him to be part of whatever happens against Penn State, whether it's an upset win or even a blowout loss. It's the biggest game this program will have ever played in, and Mike Norvelle made it happen.
Yeah, and I find it very interesting because, the way the current system is set up, this is what the group of 5 schools have to face, because Mike Norvelle has accomplished the top level he can do at a G5 school, and that's go to a New Year's Six bowl game. And so that ceiling is awful low for the G5 coaches, that when the P5 schools come knocking, that they have to listen. And then the other aspect is that, I think it is a crying shame that coaches are put in a position where they can't finish the job with their kids of culminating a spectacular season. It probably will never happen, but it really would be great if there was some sort of moratorium that you couldn't poach another school's coach until after the season.
Yeah, it's a form of tampering. Losing programs are able to contact coaches of successful programs when those programs are still, have significant season to play. And you've got this oddity where you have the early signing period kind of overlapping bowl season. And it makes for a really messy parting of ways, even when the parting is rather harmonious and with grace on both sides. The university, the city of Memphis, has no ill will toward Mike Norvelle, and I don't know if you listened to his press conference Sunday. He's very gracious and loving toward the Memphis City Community University. But it makes for an awkward a parting of ways, and it can be better. It's not problem one with the NCAA. I mean, we could fill up several shows discussing how the NCAA could improve itself, but how the coaches bounce around, how that carousel turns, I think is an important consideration. If the NCAA truly does care about the programs and the message that bowl season and championships and historic seasons provide.
And I think it also brings up another interesting debate that has come up as well, is people are hitting the journalists for asking Mike Norvelle in that particular venue about the FSU job. I think it's one thing to ask. I think it's another thing is, like, if it's clear he's not going to answer the question, one's enough, right?
Yeah. No, I was rather silent, honestly, at the press conference, in part because I didn't feel like any question I asked about the football game was even remotely close to the elephant in the room that a few brave reporters tried to touch upon. But again, that's just one more and a very small component of why it's such an awkward situation we have with the rules as they exist. Reporters walking into that room. It was a good football game. It was a historic championship for Memphis, but the news was all about this young, rising head coach moving on to what he hopes is a program where he can win a national championship. That was the story.
Yeah. So let's look at the Cotton Bowl. So this distraction aside, Memphis is getting a crack at Penn State. What are your early thoughts on that matchup?
Yeah, Jeff, I got to look at some Penn State film, as they say. I haven't done my scouting much. This is the first time the Tigers have ever played the Nittany Lions. It kind of surprised me. A quirk in this, it's the first time Memphis has played a program, Jeff, that starts with the letter P. So I hope that stirs your listeners some. The Tigers are going to have their work cut out for them. I would imagine, without even looking at the rosters, that Penn State's line, offense and defense, is going to be considerably bigger. I know how they grow them in the Big Ten. So will the Tigers be able to establish a running game at all? And they had difficulty with that, Jeff, in both games against Cincinnati. And I don't think if the Tigers can't run the ball, they're going to have a hard time winning. If Kenny Gainwell and even Antonio Gibson, who has turned into a star late in the season, can find a way to gain some yardage on the ground, I think Brady White might do some damage downfield, and the Tigers could make it a close game. But it's, I think I saw a 9.5-point line for Penn State early, and that would seem about right. It's going to be tough sledding for the Tigers, but that's precisely the way, let me tell you, that's precisely the way Memphis would want it. The Memphis versus everybody mantra has been around in various formats, whether it's basketball, football, all kinds of contexts, and that'll be the case on December 28th in Dallas.
Well, it's been a great 2019 football season, so you got a lot of guys you could choose from. Who do you think is the Tigers' MVP?
Wow, the Tigers' MVP for the season, I would go with Kenny Gainwell. Jeff, he's a young man, a redshirt freshman who filled a slot vacated by Patrick Taylor, who was a dynamite, a much larger running back who starred the last couple of years and injured his ankle in the season opener. And Kenny has upwards of 1,400 yards on the ground, 400 to 500 receiving the ball. And no, if he doesn't emerge and become the Kenneth Gainwell we saw play over the last 4 months, last 3 months, then the Tigers would not be playing the Cotton Bowl. He'd be my MVP.
That sounds good. Well, Frank Murtaugh, he is the managing editor of Memphis Magazine, covers sports for the Memphis Flyer. We thank you so much for your coverage all season long.
Thanks, Jeff. I always appreciate chatting with you. Happy holidays.
And happy holidays to you as well, Frank. And you can follow Frank on Twitter at Frank Murtaugh. That's Murtaugh. Let's run down the full bowl schedule involving teams from the American in order of date. The Cheribundi Boca Raton Bowl, December 21st at FAU Stadium in Del Boca Vista. 10-2 SMU versus 10-3 Florida Atlantic. FAU is the home team and getting their home stadium. And that'll be a 3:30 game on ABC December 21st, the first ever meeting between those two schools. The Bad Boy Motors Gasparilla Bowl at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa features 9-3 UCF against 8-4 Marshall as they renew an old MAC and Conference USA rivalry. That'll be an ESPN broadcast. UCF leads the all-time series 8-3. Last time they met was way back in 2012 when the Knights thumped the Thundering Herd 54-17. The Military Bowl presented by Northrop Grumman, December 27th at the Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium in Annapolis. 8-4 Temple against 6-6 North Carolina. That'll be a noon kickoff on ESPN, the first ever meeting between those two schools. As we mentioned, the New Year's Six bid for Memphis at the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic on December 28th at AT&T Stadium, Jerry World in Arlington. 12-1 Memphis, 10-2 Penn State on ESPN. And as Frank mentioned, first ever meeting between those two schools. Also, first ever meeting taking place at the AutoZone Liberty Bowl on New Year's Eve, December 31st at Liberty Bowl Stadium. 9-2 Navy against 8-4 Kansas State, and that'll be a 3:45 kickoff on ESPN that day. The Ticket Smarter Birmingham Bowl will feature AAC Eastern Division champ Cincinnati at Legion Field taking on Boston College 6-6, and that'll be a 3 o'clock kickoff on ESPN on January 2nd. Boston College leads the all-time series 4-3. Last time they played was just a mere 22 years ago when Cincinnati defeated Boston College 24-6. And the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl will take place January 4th. That's a Saturday at Amon G. Carter Stadium in Fort Worth. 6-6 Tulane against 7-5 Southern Miss. It'll be at 11:30 a.m. kickoff on ESPN that day. Southern Miss, these two teams have some history. They lead the all-time series 23-7. The last meeting was way back in 2010. Southern Miss was a 46-30 winner that day. One more regular season game to go. It's the tradition-rich rivalry of Army v. Navy. Joe Miller of the Navy Radio Network joins me to talk about that next when the AAC Report continues in just a moment.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Fagley reminding you to tune in every Sunday morning, 9 to 10 a.m. on ESPN 580 Orlando for Knightline the morning after. We'll be taking your calls and your texts reacting to the previous week's UCF sports action. Once again, that's Knightline the morning after, every Sunday morning, 9 to 10 a.m. on ESPN 580 Orlando or TuneIn Radio. Go Knights and charge on.
Are you tired of the endless money pit of paying rent? Do you have a home you need to sell for top dollar? Talk to the Hometown Advantage award-winning real estate professional and fellow UCF Knight, Blake Blahut of Realty One Group. Blake has proven to produce results and a smooth process for his clients all across Central Florida. Whether you're looking to buy your very first home or looking to downsize or upgrade, talk to Blake Blahut. Visit him at his website, Blake'sOrlandoHomes.com, or contact him anytime at 407-748-0484. Again, Blake'sOrlandoHomes.com and 407-748-0484. Get the hometown advantage by working with Blake.
Every child in Central Florida deserves a toy at Christmas. But unfortunately, not every local family can provide that Christmas cheer. Hearts Helping Others of Central Florida is once again teaming with local businesses for their annual toy drive, and we need you. For years now, Hearts Helping Others of Central Florida has supported local Central Florida families in need with many programs, providing food, clothing, resources, and services. They do this regardless of the income bracket of the family, because every family could be just one paycheck away from financial disaster. During the holidays, things can be even worse for these families in need. For the next 2 weeks, you can drop off new unwrapped toys for ages newborn through 17 years old at one of our many drop-off locations. These include 5-Day Cabinets in Castleberry, O'Reilly Auto Parts in Apopka, Stefano's Restaurant in Winter Springs, Shovelhead Lounge in Longwood, and First Institute in College Park. The toy drive supports local families that may need a little help at this time of the year And you, our Central Florida residents and local businesses, have a chance to provide the toys Hearts Helping Others will give away in its holiday support program this month. You can also donate financially through their website at heartshelpingotherscfl.com. Become a donor for the holidays or a monthly partner. Find us on Facebook or PayPal at heartshelpingothers7@gmail.com. Hearts Helping Others. We can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone.
It is our pleasure to welcome Joe Miller of the Navy Radio Network back to our program as we get set to discuss the annual Army-Navy game. Joe, thanks for being here.
No problem. Always enjoy it.
Well, Joe, it's an amazing thing. This week they are bitter rivals. Come Saturday night, they will once again be brothers in arms. One of the great spectacles of this college football rivalry.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a really cool environment. It's a really cool lead-up this week. Today was we meet with the coaches on Tuesdays. So getting a chance to talk to the head coach, Ken Niumatalolo, the offense coordinator, defense coordinator, a couple other members of the staff, and it's a really cool environment. Even though I think talking to head coach Niumatalolo, and he said it was his 22nd this Saturday. I guess it's probably my ninth game, my ninth Army-Navy game. So, I mean, it never gets old. It's a lot of fun. The whole thing is just a celebration of a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, it is a football game. And for Navy coming into this weekend, look, everybody knows that they've lost 3 straight. This senior class hasn't beaten Army. And, it's something that hangs over them. There's no doubt. I mean, they've had a tremendous amount of success in conference this season. And, look, this is not going to wipe that success away if they lose. But this is a big part of the Naval Academy, and it's a big part of what they're trying to accomplish at the beginning of the season. It's just it's a huge game. I mean, there's a lot of different, probably better adjectives than huge, but it's just a cool environment. It's a really exciting football game as well.
Well, and I think it's interesting, too. Navy had a terrific season, just really not very far away from winning the Western Division of the AAC, tied with Memphis for best record. Memphis had the tiebreaker overall because of their head-to-head matchup. What an incredible season, and, basically, it's almost like they get 2 bowl games, right?
Yeah, it's weird because I think a lot of people were very excited about getting a chance to play in the Liberty Bowl. And obviously we found that out on Sunday, and playing on New Year's Eve in the Liberty Bowl, one of the historic bowl games. I think everybody was excited about that, but you also have to temper that excitement with, well, we're worried and we're focused on Army. So most teams are looking at their bowl matchup and talking about that at this point, and we still have a regular season to go. And while there was excitement about the Liberty Bowl and the season that they've had, you still have in the back of your mind, look, you got to go in to Philadelphia and you got to beat Army to sort of put the bow on the season, and then you can maybe take a deep breath for a couple of days and then start to focus in on Kansas State in the matchup in the Liberty Bowl. But they had 2 weeks off, but it's very action-packed. There's actually, this week, there's exams at the academy, so that has thrown a little bit of a wrench into the football preparing for this game. So they tried to put in a lot of the stuff this past week and then sort of put in the details this week because, look, exams at the Naval Academy are a massive thing. Not saying they aren't at a civilian school, but it's a big deal at the Naval Academy that will lead right up to the before they drive up to Philadelphia for the game. So they tried to put in a lot of stuff this past week and just refine stuff this week, going over some details this week. But it is that kind of, sort of that bowl mentality where you have some free time here, but, it's been packed into a tight window for them because of exams. So it brings a little bit of a unique effort that the coaching staff has tried to put in for the game against the Black Knights. But the one thing, though, is, Jeff, I mean, if there's 2 teams that know each other pretty well, I mean, both teams try to throw some wrinkles in every now and then. But talking to the coaching staff today, look, there's always the opportunity to throw a wrench into the program. But they know each other very well. They know what they do well. They know what they don't do well. So if there's one team that you can kind of prepare for in a quick pace setting, it is probably for each of these teams, it's each other.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, Army's coach Jeff Monken was former assistant in Navy, and he kind of turned the tide there for Army, where they were starting to own the series a little bit. And now this year, it looks like a good chance for Navy to get back in the win column. And at least Army does have to prepare, as we've discussed on this program many times, is the fact that Coach Ken has made changes and made tough changes this year, modifying the offense, coming up with a new defense. So I guess Army does have a little bit more prep to do than they would have in previous years.
Yeah, and talking to Brian Newberry, one of the things, and also talking to Coach Ian Murtaugh, one of the things that when they brought in the new defensive staff, one of the things that he emphasized was that staff had to have some idea of what the option is. They went and looked around the country looking for a defensive coordinator, but one of the things and one of the prerequisites that he wanted was somebody that had knowledge of the option. And Brian Newberry was the defensive coordinator at Kennesaw State, who ran the same triple option as the midshipmen and as the Black Knights. So when he brought in the new coaching staff, he wanted to have some familiarity, especially at the top of the coaching staff. And Brian Norwood, who was the co-defensive coordinator, who was brought in, used to coach here at Navy. So he wanted that influence, at least the knowledge of what the basic stuff of the option is to defend. And I think it's, you talk to the players on the defensive side of the football field, they love playing Air Force and Army. Look, it's something, obviously it, and playing the spread and playing four receivers and playing SMU and playing Houston, playing guys that are playing in the NFL over the next couple of years and playing Memphis, that's tough. You go into the Army-Navy game, you play it, 8, 9 men in a box. You're playing that game in a phone booth. And the defensive players really enjoy that. They like to get downhill. They like to, attack things. So it's funny when you talk to the defensive players, they almost get a little bit of extra excitement when they play either Air Force or Army, because it does simplify things, and they're not worried about trying to tackle Marquez Stevenson in space or DeMonte Coxie in space. They can get downfield and attack the option. So I think the defensive players really enjoyed it. And the coaching staff, they'll try to throw some different things in there. But as we talk about all the time with the coaching staffs here at Navy, is that in the triple option, there's always a counter to whatever defense is trying to accomplish. So everybody makes adjustments. I guess it's probably been about 4 years now when Zach Abey, who was a freshman at the time, had to start the Army-Navy game because of injury. And Navy put in a shotgun package, and it worked the first drive. But by drive 3, Army had fixed their defense and was ready for it. So there's some things that they can try, and I'm sure the new guys on the defensive side of the coaching staff have some things in store. But that just adds to a little bit of the excitement, having some, fresh meat, if you will, on the coaching staff to digest this Army-Navy game.
Well, I'll tell you what I always look forward to is the fact that the Army-Navy game is all the great legends of Army and Navy show up for this. And, of course, I grew up a Roger Staubach fan, like a lot of guys did. Yeah. And what's it like to have Roger Staubach there, because, he's basically royalty, right?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Last year we were playing Tulane in New Orleans, and I was down on the field, and he was going to be part of the ceremonial coin flip at the beginning of the game. And he was just standing on the sideline, and he was looking for a football because he just wanted to throw the football. And it's like, it's never left him. It's kind of cool. But the one thing I will say this about being a part of this program is you meet some really cool people that have accomplished a lot of things in their life. I remember, 4 or 5 years ago, Jim Lovell, who was the astronaut, if you've seen Apollo 13, the role played by Tom Hanks, he was in for a game, and I got to interview him before the game, and obviously Roger Staubach, and, a couple last year, Mark Wahlberg was our halftime guest at the Army-Navy game. So, look, there's a lot of cool people that have accomplished a lot of cool things at the Naval Academy that you get to talk to and you get to meet, and it kind of all comes together for the Army-Navy game. And it is sort of like a mini Super Bowl. especially for these players. I mean, it's a chance. 15, 20 years ago, it was the chance to be on national television. Now, you get that pretty much every week. But still, it's a big deal to have the number one crew at CBS there, to have the interest of the entire college football world watching you. And it creates a lot of cool memories and a lot of lasting memories for these players to play in this game and to have those experiences. And there's no doubt that there's a lot of people associated with both programs, not just Navy, but with Army, that have accomplished amazing feats in their life, and you get to meet them, and you're kind of in all of them, whether it's been athletic accomplishments or accomplishments in film or in military, obviously. So it's a really nice setting where you get to meet some really interesting people.
And so what sort of things will take place this week leading up to the game? Anything of interest of note?
Well, obviously, today we had a luncheon for the Army-Navy game. Sat down with head coach Ken Niumatalolo and my partner Pete Medhurst. So we did a luncheon today. There's some events on Thursday surrounding the pep rally that will go down in Annapolis. Friday is the travel day for us. We'll go up on Friday. They have a really cool thing, Jeff. They do Radio Row, sort of like what they do at the Super Bowl on Fridays in Philadelphia. I think this is about the 4th or 5th year. It's set up by USAA, who's the presenting sponsor for the Army-Navy game, and a lot of radio stations from around the country are invited to come out to the game. And they have, Roger Staubach, I'm sure, will be there. He's been there the last few years. You get a lot of cool interviews there. I've participated the last couple of years. You go out there, you get to talk to a bunch of different radio stations, and there's a lot of interesting people that come around to the Army-Navy game. One of the cool aspects, which I always find amazing, because when it's about a 2.5-hour drive from Annapolis to Philadelphia. Nothing crazy, but one of the things that they do is they run the game ball up to the game. So a group of midshipmen get together, and they actually run from Annapolis to Philadelphia with the game ball to present it before the game. So that's kind of a cool thing that happens during the Army-Navy game. It's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of attention that is focused on this game. It's funny because you talk to the coaches, and they kind of, obviously the coaches, they try to block some of that stuff up, but they also want the players to sort of breathe in. They had a practice last week at the stadium to sort of loosen things up, and obviously can't replicate the atmosphere that will be at Lincoln Financial Field on Saturday. But they want to try to get out on the field on Friday if they can and do a little bit of a walkthrough to soak in that environment and just get used to what that stadium. The other thing, Jeff, that is very interesting. This is my first year in the booth, but I've been on the sideline for the previous 4 years on the radio network. And the one thing about Army-Navy that is unique to any other game that I've ever been at is that the place is packed 45 minutes before the game. So even during pregame warm-ups, you get a sense of this awe and wonder that is going on because the place is jam-packed and it's loud, even during pregame warm-ups. So the players like to get out on the field and sort of just soak that in a little bit. And the good thing about this game is you can get out there early and kind of take in the crowd, and then you still probably have about 40 minutes before you kick things off. So it's a unique atmosphere, and that I haven't been to too many games where it's that sold out and that many people are in their seats that quickly and are ready for the game. So it's a unique atmosphere, and they try to soak it in as much as they can, but they realize that there's a football game to be won as well.
Yeah, and then I think the thing that tugs your heartstrings is at the end of the game when both teams will sing each other's alma mater. I tell you, it's such a moving moment in one of the great aspects of college football.
Yeah, I'll never forget. I guess it's been a couple of years now. The game that was played in the snow, but Navy had about a 47-yard field goal to win it, and Bennett Moore, he was the kicker for the Mavs. I was standing underneath the goalpost when he kicked it, and Jeff had looked up until the last 10 yards like it was going to be good, and then it kind of just swayed off to my right to his left, and to have the game end on a missed field goal, and then to see the emotion that went into that for him, and then seeing him after the game, it's just it's just this emotional moment for the seniors too, that they have to go through that. And the thing second is the mantra for both teams, because the alma mater of the winner gets to be played second. and it's as big a part of the game as anything, to be quite honest with you. Mm-hmm. It's a vital aspect of the contest to be able to sing your alma mater second after the game, and it gets pretty emotional down on the field, I'll tell you that.
Well, I'll tell you what, Joe, it's appreciate your time all season long, giving us the insight on Navy football, and should be an excellent contest this coming Saturday. So since this is an AAC show, I would love for you to give us another Go Navy Beat Army.
Go Navy Beat Army.
All right, Joe, thanks again, buddy.
All right, Seth, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, Army and Navy, Saturday at 3:30 on CBS. Navy leads the all-time series 60-52. There have been 7 ties. Army has got a 3-game winning streak, and they were victorious last year by a score of 17-10. Getting to our football season awards, Navy quarterback Malcolm Perry, who ranks among the top 5 players nationally in both rushing yards and rushing touchdowns, chosen as the 2019 AAC Conference Offensive Player of the Year. Temple defensive end Quincy Roche, the league leader in sacks and tackles for loss, was named the American's Defensive Player of the Year. Houston punter Dane Roy and Memphis return specialist Antonio Gibson were chosen as the American Special Teams Player of the Year. Memphis running back Kenneth Gainwell was named the Rookie of the Year, and Navy head coach Ken Niumatalolo was selected as Coach of the Year. In addition to the major award winners, the conference also named as first, second, and honorable mention all-conference teams, and we will list those for you now. At the first team, wide receivers are Gabe Davis of UCF, Marquez Stevenson of Houston, and James Prochet of SMU. The offensive tackles, Jake Brown of UCF, Matt Pearl of UConn. The guards, Morgan James of Cincinnati, David Forney of Navy. The center, Matt Hennessy of Temple. The tight end, Josiah DeGuerra of Cincinnati. Quarterbacks, Malcolm Perry of Navy, Shane Buechele of SMU. The running backs, Kenneth Gainwell of Memphis, Xavier Jones of SMU. On the defensive side of the ball, the defensive lineman, Elijah Ponder of Cincinnati, Ifeanyi Miaje of Temple, Quincy Roche of Temple, and Travis Gibson of Tulsa. Linebackers, Brian Wright of Cincinnati, Perry Young, also of the Bearcats, and Diego Fagot of Navy, along with Patrick Nelson of SMU and Sean Bradley of Temple. The corners, Ahmad Gardner of the Bearcats, Reggie Robinson of Tulsa. Safeties, Richie Grant of UCF, Derek Forrest of Cincinnati. Kicker, Riley Patterson of Memphis. The punter, Dane Roy. And the return specialist, Antonio Gibson of Memphis. The second team, wide receivers, DeMonte Cooksey of Memphis, Antonio Gibson of Memphis, and Jaden Blue of Temple. The tackles, Josh Jones of Houston, Jalen Thomas of SMU. Guards, Cole Schneider from UCF, Javon Fair of Temple. The center, Dustin Woodward of Memphis. The tight end, Joey Magnifico of Memphis. Also, Kyle Granson of SMU. Quarterback, Brady White of the Memphis Tigers. Adrian Killens, Michael Warren of Cincinnati, and Shamari Brooks of Tulsa joined the Knights speedster as the running backs on the second team honor roll. And as far as honorable mention, we will list those for you now. Running back Otis Anderson of UCF, cornerback Neville Clark of UCF, and wide receiver Trey Nixon of UCF, along with defensive liner Kenny Tunier of the Knights. Kicker Sam Crosa of Cincinnati, safety Javon Hicks of also the Cincinnati Bearcats. Wide receiver C.J. Johnson from ECU, and his teammate Deontay Smith at offensive tackle. The other offensive tackle, Billy Honecker of Navy. Linebacker Jacob Springer of Navy. Quarterback T.J. Carter, and defensive lineman Joseph Dorcius, and defensive lineman O'Brien Goodson of Memphis making the honorable mention. Linebacker Austin Hall. Offensive guard Dylan Parham, also of Memphis. Tight end Mitchell Wilcox, the representative from South Florida. Offensive guard Corey Dublin, and cornerback Precarious Keys, along with safety P.J. Hall, representing Tulane on the honorable mention. Turning to men's soccer, SMU evened the score twice, forcing extra time at number 1 ranked Virginia, but the Cavaliers converted on the golden goal in the 95th minute to escape the Mustangs in the quarterfinals of the NCAA Men's Soccer Championship. The 8th-seeded Mustangs, the 2019 AAC champs, closed the season at 18-2-1 overall, ranked number 5 in the United Soccer Coaches Poll. SMU is just the second team to score 2 goals on Virginia this season. Volleyball, Cincinnati pulled off the most stunning upset thus far in the Division I Women's Volleyball Championship. And this past Saturday night in Pittsburgh, In the face of a 2-1 deficit, they claimed the final 2 frames to shock number 6 Pittsburgh. That win vaults Cincinnati into the 3rd round of the NCAA Championship for the first time in program history. And they are also the first team representing the American since the league formed in 2013 to reach the final 16 in the NCAA volleyball tournament. And they will take on number 11 seed Penn State on Friday. By the way, 3-time AAC Player of the Year Jordan Thompson has been named to the 2019 COSIDA Academic All-American Division I volleyball team that the College Sports Information Directors of America announced on Monday after majoring in criminal justice with a cumulative 3.59 GPA. As an undergrad, she added a 3.67 GPA in graduate studies at Cincinnati. So good job by her, hitting the books as well. UCF's tournament run in the NCAA has ended with a loss to Florida in 3 sets. They did defeat FSU to get to the second round. First time they beat the Seminoles since the 80s. Tulsa continued rolling in the 2019 National Invitational Volleyball Championship on Thursday as they took a 3-1 win over Santa Clara to cap a 2-0 weekend in Long Beach. They will take on Weber State on Thursday. Houston dropped its first round match to Sam Houston State in 4 sets. The Cougars reached the postseason for the first time since 2000 after tying for second place in the West Division of the American during the regular season. Let's look at the honors for men's basketball. Player of the week, Quentin Grimes from Houston, averaged 22.5 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists, and a pair of wins for the Cougars, also shooting 42.9% from three-point range. The sophomore scored 21 points and grabbed 6 rebounds against Texas State on December 4th before adding 24 points, 4 rebounds, and a road win at South Carolina on December the 8th. Freshman of the week, Tyson Etienne of Wichita State in 2 wins for the Shockers. He averaged 16 points, 3 assists, while shooting 8 for 13 from 3. And he also scored a game-high 19 points on 5 3-pointers to lift Wichita State to a road victory over Oklahoma State. And Cesar De Jesus of UCF made the honor roll, averaging 20.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 2 steals in a pair of games as well. Women's hoops, player of the week, Megan Walker of UConn. Repeat player of the week after 27.5 points, 9 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 1.5 steals, and 1.5 blocks per game in a 2-0 week last week. And against Seton Hall on Wednesday, she poured at a game-high, season-high 29 points, grabbed 5 rebounds, dished out 3 assists, and also followed with a 26-point, 13 rebound, 4 assists, 2 steal performance against Notre Dame. The freshman of the week, also from UConn, Aubrey Griffin, had a breakout week with her first career double-double for UConn, and the Huskies dominating 92-71 win at Seton Hall. Scored 25 points and shot 7 of 14 from the field, 10 of 12 from the foul line, grabbed 12 rebounds, with half of those coming on the offensive end there. Indoor track and field honors. Let's take a look at those real quick. The men's track athlete of the week, Terrence Ware of Houston, claimed the 60-meter dash at the Texas A&M Reveal in an invitational, crossing the finish line at 6.80, and his winning time ranked 13th in the country after the opening week of the season. The men's field athlete of the week, Jordan Wesner of Memphis, excelled in the high jump at the BCS Indoor Icebreaker in Birmingham, taking the event by clearing 2.16 meters, 7 feet 1 inch in layman's terms, and his effort tied for the top mark nationally in the season's first week of competition. The women's track athlete of the week, Naomi Taylor of Houston, fantastic performance in the 60-meter hurdles at the Texas A&M Invitational, taking that in 8.31 finish time, and finished the first week as the season as the national leader in that event. And the women's field athlete of the week, Dania McMiller of Memphis. She won the weight throw at the BCS Indoor Icebreaker Invitational with a dominant effort of 22.20 meters, adding a shot put throw of 14.58 meters. Leads the nation in the weight throw after the first week of the season and adding the 4th best shot put in the American. And finally, cross country, the final awards for the season, the men's run of the year. No surprise, Aaron Benenville of Cincinnati capped a sound-out season with wins in all 4 of his starts in 2019, added his first career AAC Championship in November, logging a championship meet run of 23:43.46 to establish a course record and win by nearly 30 full seconds. And in his final start of the season, he brought home the NCAA Great Lakes Regional Individual title with a victorious 10K time of 29:59.9 in Madison, Wisconsin. And the women's runner of the year is Winnie Koski of Wichita State. Became the first repeat winner of the Women's Runner of the Year award after enjoying a stellar junior campaign for the Shockers, repeating as conference champ of the women's 6K with a triumphant time of 20:14.18, and later added a third place result at the NCAA Midwest Regional, 20:34.9, and narrowly missed out on All-American honors in 47th place at the NCAA Division I Cross Country Championships in Terre Haute. As always, invite you to join me, follow me on Twitter at JeffAllen_88. Happy to engage with you via the social media platform. And also check out my personal podcast at JeffAllenSportsTalk.com whenever you get the opportunity. And as always, keep following that Knightline Sports Network feed on your favorite mobile device to catch the latest from Knightline, the Sons of UCF, and, of course, the AAC Report. And that wraps up this edition of the AAC Report, only on the Knightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks for listening.